So hello, everybody. Welcome to Erin's Energy. And I have a very special guest today, and his name is Denny Hunt. Denny is one of the co-founders of GetWisdom.com, and he has blessed us with his time a second time. We've had to do this video twice, had a little bit of technical difficulties. So he has been, like I said, very generous with his time, and I can't wait to share his knowledge with everybody. He does the Lightworker Healing Protocol, and that is the healing that I received. So I just wanted to share that with all of you, and feel blessed to call him my friend at this point, and I'm going to let Denny go ahead and introduce himself, and take it away, Denny. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Erin. Yeah. So I'm one of the founders of GetWisdom.com, and it's a website. The two other partners live in Chicago. I live out in the West Coast, California, and it's the Get Wisdom website is based around the work of Carl Mollison, who used to be a scientist and a researcher and an inventor, and with some published white papers and such for a big pharmaceutical company back east. And that was his main career. He was a science fellow growing up. He's very interested in healing from an early age. He did some intern work at hospitals, got his degree, got hired by a very large and well-known pharmaceutical company, and basically had a very successful career in science. And then right around the year 2000, he had an epiphany and kind of a spiritual awakening. And he realized that he was barking up the wrong tree, trying to use pharmaceuticals as a means of actually healing people. And what's interesting about Carl, many interesting things about Carl, but one of them was that his father was a minister. So his father was a God person and Carl was a science person. They had a good relationship, but they were really on different paths. His father was very patient with him. And it wasn't until after, my understanding is it wasn't until after his father passed that Carl went through this transformation. So Carl continued his interest in healing, and he got into hypnotherapy because there were some very interesting anecdotal stories, no really big scientific studies on it, but hypnotherapy looked quite promising when it came to the subject of healing. And so he found out he was pretty good as a hypnotherapist, and he got credentialed for that. And he worked with other hypnotherapists and discovered that he could also channel. And so he worked with other hypnotherapists, and they started investigating the whole area of channeling. And one thing led to another, and he started to work out a healing modality based on the results of his hypnotherapy and channeling work and some other healing modalities that he had gone out and learned. And so by the time I met him, he had already given his healing and modality a name. It's called the Lightworker Healing Protocol. And it's different today than it was when I met him, but it was still a very powerful healing modality. And I was struggling with an addiction issue that I had, mostly dealt with when I was a younger man. But as I got older, I noticed that I didn't notice that I was in the midst of self-medicating with alcohol periodically. And I had already gone through the AA thing, and I knew that with AA, you pretty much had to commit yourself to going to meetings all the time. And if you didn't do that, then the chances of relapse back into alcoholism, full-blown alcoholism, was really high. It's like over 90%. So if you want to go to meetings all the time with AA, you can stay off alcohol pretty easily. Well, I wouldn't say easily, but you do have to go to the meetings. I knew there was more to the story than that, but I wasn't sure what it was. And so I got encouraged to get a psychic reading by a local woman here named Vidya Frazier. And she did a reading on me, and she says, well, this alcohol thing that you're dealing with is from an entity attachment. And this entity attachment is what is fueling this desire to self-medicate with alcohol. And I thought, well, it was something pretty strange to me. I'd never heard of such a thing. I mean, I've heard of entities and dark spirits and, ghosts and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of it being something that actually could be involved with addiction, that was new to me. And so I had, up until that point that I had met her, I had spent a lot of money working with different types of healing modalities, talk therapy, neuro-linguistic programming, a lot of things that had been offshoots from the work of Bruce Lipton and what's his name, Joe Podesta, I think his name is. Anyway, a lot of different healing modalities, and a lot of money was spent. So Vidya tells me you have an entity attachment, and I don't do entity attachment removals, but I know someone who does. And she gave me Carl's name and number, and I called him. He's in Chicago, and he said, well, this is a remote healing technique. You don't really need to do anything. I will just do the session for you, and I'll tell you when I'm done. And so I paid him, and it was a kind of a small amount of money compared to what I've been, putting out for all these other, healing modalities. And that was it. It worked. No fireworks, no gnashing of teeth. It just worked. It just went away. It became a non-issue, and I moved on with my life. And then at the time I had a YouTube channel called Why Is This True? And I was in the business of, at that time, of interviewing people who had had abduction experiences or recollections of being in what most people know as the secret space program.
Mm-hmm.
And these were people that if they were to go to their family doctor or whatever and told them what they had experienced, the doctors would typically tell them, well, you're delusional, you need to be on medication. And so what I wanted to do was like create a platform so that they could tell their stories without feeling persecuted or having someone tell them, oh, prove it.
Right.
So it was called Why Is This True? And so as a result of my interaction with Carl, I said, well, I've got to interview this guy. This is something pretty amazing. So I did an interview with him. And then a few months later, he called and he said, hey, I got an idea for your YouTube channel. How about if I come on to your channel and I go into trance mode and I channel people who have passed away that are now in the light, who were involved in the ET UFO cover-up, maybe through, the government or something like that. And I thought, wow, that would be great, And so that's what we started to do. And we did a bunch of channelings of different people that were pretty well-known whistleblowers around this thing, like Phil Schneider, Dr. John Mack, Eisenhower, and many other people. We got into like James Forrestal, was thrown out of the 13th floor of the Bethesda, Maryland hospital, Navy hospital, and it became quite an avenue of discovery, not only for him, but for all of our viewers. And what started to come out of this channeling series, what we called it, was that there was a very high level ET involvement in human affairs that was always under the radar. It was hidden. It was like the hidden hand, like you talk about the shadow government and stuff like that. Well, behind the shadow government, we were discovering there was an ET manipulation thing that went throughout all human institutions. And so a lot of my followers on the YouTube channel had more of a egalitarian kind of attitude towards the whole ET phenomenon. Like they
Love
were
and
really,
light.
yeah, love and light. They really thought that there could be negative ETs, but there's also positive ETs, and they're trying to help humans and this kind of thing. And the story we were getting was that no, they're all negative. All the ETs that are actually involved in human affairs are all negative. And so this turned off quite a few of my followers on my YouTube channel. So I lost a lot of people that just went away. So so things progressed, and Carl actually flew out from Chicago to where I live. We live about 60 miles north of San Francisco, and he did a class for about 33 of us out here for the Lightworker Healing Protocol. So he taught us in person. It was the last time he ever did it.
Okay.
My wife and I learned. A few local people here learned. Some people flew from far away to take this class. One person flew from Vietnam. We had another person come down from Canada. I think there may have been one person that came from Europe. I can't remember. But so he taught the class, and we learned the Lightworker Healing Protocol. And then not too long after that, or just about the same time, or maybe just prior to that, we had got that our third partner, Brian Kelly, an attorney from Chicago, had found out about Carl through my website, through my YouTube channel. And he said, hey, we got to make this a going concern. We need to offer this to more people. And, this was in line with what Carl wanted to do. And that's why he contacted me about getting on the YouTube channel.
Sure.
So he just knew that he needed a wider audience. And I think what happened with Carl was that as he was working with his various clients with the Lightworker Healing Protocol, he would channel and ask his guides, archangels, and even his father. When I met him, he was doing a lot of channeling with his father, and his father was helping him, develop and improve the Lightworker Healing Protocol. He was finding out that ETs were involved in at least 5% of all his clients. There was some type of direct ET manipulation of his clients. And so this was kind of alarming to him. And as an adjunct to that, he also was told that he needed a bigger audience for his work.
Okay.
So we started the Get Wisdom website, and then one of the first things that Carl and I did was develop the Lightworker Healing Protocol as a class that you could take online and learn how to do the Lightworker Healing Protocol yourself. Just like he came out and taught us, we made video modules from that class, and and he wrote a manual, an LHP manual that people could read and learn how to do the LHP themselves. And the LHP, the Lightworker Healing Protocol, all it is a high-level prayer request.
Right. That's my favorite part about it.
Yeah.
My favorite part.
So it just by virtue of that, it is very different from other type of energy healing modalities. Most time, if you go to an energy healer, they are going to want you to obtain permission from the client. So if you go to them, you're acquiescing. Yes,
right.
Energy worker, please work on me, my energy field, or whatever it is that you do. And there's a bunch of them out there, and some of them are pretty good. But unfortunately, a lot of them can get the client relief, but it doesn't last. That's a typical scenario for a lot of these. But with the Lightworker Healing Protocol, you could actually buy a session for a loved one, and you don't need to tell them, because it is a high-level prayer request. So all the healing, 100% of the healing that's done is done by the divine realm, and it's only done through the permission of that person's higher self.
Exactly.
So that's why.
So there's no permission needed.
Yeah, no permission needed, because if it's healing that is not a long-term benefit, it's not going to get done.
Right.
And when I say this, it should be qualified, because we were able to confirm that reincarnation is real. We've all been reincarnated. We've been here most humans have been here many times.
Tell them how many times, Denny.
Yeah, the average person on Earth has had over 600 lifetimes on Earth. It's 620 something, right? Most of those lifetimes are filled with unhealed trauma. But when we have a life, when we incarnate, we usually plan our life out to some extent from the light before we incarnate. So we will try to orchestrate things so that we're with people where we have unfinished business, a mother, a father. It's usually a family member. And sometimes you have a plan to engage in a karmic lesson. And from our perspective, from the human perspective, that can look like quite negative. Like you could say, well, one of my lessons is to have a life-threatening disease and go through that.
Yeah.
And that's a karmic thing. So for instance, if you have a family member who's got cancer and you want them to heal, well, the divine realm is perfectly capable of doing that, but they're not going to abrogate the life plan, the soul, that person's soul's life plan for that incarnation. So if the karmic obligation for that lifetime is to go through that life-threatening disease and actually die from it, the divine realm's not going to muscle in just because you ask for the healing and say, oh, I'm going to make everything all great for this person again. So
if it can't interrupt the
the long-term healing for the soul. Yeah. So that's one of the things that is a little hard to understand at first. But the main thing to learn that we've learned from all of this is, yes, there is heavy manipulation from negative ETs on the human race on Earth. And this has been the case for thousands and thousands of years. It's nothing new. We've also learned that humans were created by God to solve the problem of evil in the universe. And that sounds outlandish, but that's why we're here. And so we're here with the intention of having an active role in doing that. And that activity is to be in partnership with God or the divine realm and use prayer to heal everyone, the victims as well as the perpetrators. So when I say perpetrators, I'm talking about murderers, rapists, people like Pol Pot, Stalin, Hitler, Bill Gates, whoever you want to throw in there as these evil humans. Well, every evil human started out as a victim. And it's also true for the perpetrators, the non-human perpetrators. They can be healed too.
Right. And that is my favorite part. So we spoke a little bit on this during the first interview that we had to redo. And I've had some time to process that information. I used to look at everything more as good and evil battle. And since you brought that up to me, it actually brings everything back around again. So if we're putting, let's, for instance, the pedophiles, we'll put them in jail. What is that going to solve? It's going to be, it's not going to stop the process because they're in jail for a few years. It's already a family, a familial being handed down. And so it makes so much sense to me. We're going to stop this by asking the perpetrators, we're going to ask that they be healed by God. And it makes so much sense. And I just really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's kind of counterintuitive. We've all been trained that this is a battle, and the evil should be killed or hung or eliminated or something. But life isn't like that. We are eternal beings. We go back to the light, or we reincarnate either as a human or as an ET. When a reptilian or an Anunnaki, just two of the races that are here manipulating Earth right now, the Anunnaki being the apex ones, they go from the light back into their culture, their societies, their race, and they learn all the negative things to continue their life. And it's a matter of survival for them in that incarnation to comply with the social norms, which are completely devoid of anything in divine alignment.
So they're not having a choice. It's just, that's how it is there.
Yeah. And it's depraved, it's degraded, it's totally evil, it's disconnected from God. And if they continue on this track that they're on right now, they are going to be completely cut off from the divine, and which means their life source is extinguished. So the Anunnaki, the reptilians, and the Arcturians are the ones that made the robotic grays. They're not soul-based. Grays are not soul-based. They're like a biological machine. Those races are destined for destruction because of their own choices. And the beings behind them that infected them are the fallen angelics. So that story in Genesis in the Bible is probably one of the most important and uncorrupted parts of the Bible. Unfortunately, the Bible is a heavily corrupted document, but the story about the fallen angels is largely true. So God created angels. The fallen angels, the certain component or subset of those angels decided that they didn't need God. And so they separated themselves from God. Their life force was removed. And so now they have become a parasitic being in the universe. And so that's what's infecting the Anunnaki, the reptilians, and the Arcturians. And they infect humans. So the average human has 7 entity attachments. They attach to our chakras when we're young, and they feed off our energy field. And they have clever ways of manipulating humans so that they generate negative emotions for these entities to exist.
Yes.
So it's like a partnership between the negative ETs and these parasitic beings, which we call them interlopers or dark spirits, which are the fallen angelics. Some people have different words for them, like archons, and you hear a lot of other terminology being used about the ETs, and it's designed that way. That whole arena of UFOs, ETs, and this topic of ascension is filled with disinformation. And you will see tons of confusion and misdirection that is peppered with truth.
So most of those, isn't it true that most of the attachments come to us when we're children?
Yes.
So we really don't have
so our normal is actually very abnormal.
Right. So we don't know, we couldn't feel it coming on because it's always been there, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And it's mostly true for our parents too. And most of the stuff we learn from society and our parents are means of survival in this environment that is not divinely aligned. So
So would you say that the fallen angel, I mean, that's just another word for a demon, correct? That energy?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know there's a lot of discussion, not that it matters so much, but there's many people out there that get into this big dilemma. ETs, are all, yes. And that whole, age old controversy. So, not that it matters. They're attaching to us and affecting us in a greatly negative way. So Carl, essentially, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say is that, this raises more questions than it answers. What we just discussed here in the last 5 minutes is usually like people's reaction if they studied some of this stuff already. It's like, oh, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's got it all confused, right? And I understand that because, I mean, I was in those shoes not that long ago, 5-10 years ago. If I listened to me saying what I'm saying now, I would say, oh, this guy is just, he took a left turn somewhere and never came back, but so this is explained in much more detail on the website, getwisdom.com. You can go there's a divine wisdom section there where a whole bunch of questions are answered. Plus we have free ebooks there. We have one about the ETs, one about false channeling, and one about prayer.
That's what I was going to bring up. So Carl, what Carl does is when he first learned how to channel, he didn't realize that he could actually, after he started channeling, some of these celebrities and different folks, he, and the divine realm, most importantly, he realized he had a connection straight to the creator God source.
Right.
So, and the divine realm taught him specific ways to make sure that channel is
uncorrupted.
Exactly. That it is natural. And so many channelers, I mean, how would you know, right? You're not going to know if someone's, masquerading as someone else. And Denny has done, hundreds and hundreds of hours, I'm assuming, or 1,000 maybe of channeling, and has learned the correct way to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm not a channeler.
I'm sorry. I said your name instead of Carl's. I'm sorry. Carl has done hundreds or, of hours, hundreds and
so
hundreds.
I've been like the fly on the wall. We've done like, I don't know, 140, 150 channelings that are, each one is like 2 hours long almost, where he's channeling and we're asking all these questions. And people who have passed away and then successfully transitioned to the light, they're going to tell their story about what they did on Earth. But surprisingly, if you listen to these, they all sound very similar to each other.
Yes.
And I call it the house on fire analogy. So humans right now are in a very precarious position because the negative ET cohort, or the dark alien alliance, or whatever you want to call it, that has occupied Earth now for thousands and thousands of years. Their plan is to eliminate humans. And so in the popular conspiracy culture, or alternative media right now, there's a big focus and agreement about depopulation, about how the elites want to reduce the numbers of humans on Earth. They reference the Georgia Guidestones and a lot of things like that to support their argument. If you go to Get Wisdom, we say, well, it's much worse than that. Unfortunately, the plan is much worse than that. They plan to eliminate humans, which they have already done. This is the second divine human free will experiment that has been conducted in the universe. The first one failed, and the same players were on the scene the first time around, and it was the Anunnaki who conducted the elimination of the entire human race. The Earth was devoid of humans.
And what did they gain from this? Just energy?
Yeah. Well, humans, because we still have compared to them, we have a strong divine connection. So we have this undefined, like all these ETs that we're talking about are the apex atheists. They do not believe in God. They understand our belief in God, and they think it's silly. They think it's funny. They just think of us as like little cows or little monkeys that have not developed. But they know that we have some kind of a mojo especially when we pray in groups, that things happen that they can't figure out. They think it has something to do with our DNA.
So that's hence all the abductions, the DNA messing with it.
Right.
Okay.
And the robotic greys are especially interested in that because they don't have souls and they don't reincarnate. But they know, because since they have access to the Akashic records, they know that humans reincarnate, and they think that's a phenomenon related to the DNA. So for thousands of years, they've been abducting humans and doing all kinds of experiments on them, trying to decode this DNA thing so that they can incorporate it into their biology and enjoy some of the same features that they see in humans. But they don't believe in God. They don't think it's a spiritual thing at all. They think that's just,
So wouldn't the spiritual thing be encoded in the DNA, or is it?
Well, different? It is, but in the divine realm, it's like that's cut off from them. They have access. Like, okay, ETs, almost all of them are psychic. They don't need to communicate with language. They can do it telepathically. They have access to the Akashic records. But the whole divine realm aspect of all of these phenomena are veiled to them because they don't believe in God.
I was going to say, it makes sense. If they don't have it, how could they understand it, correct?
Right. Well,
if they don't have that
the point
spark,
I'm trying to make is that they have access to a lot of things that we think of as spiritual skills, but they don't have the belief in God. So they have an understanding of those things that we think of as spiritual. They have a mechanistic view of it. Just like humans say, oh, you have consciousness because you have a brain. No, it's the other way around. You have a brain because you have consciousness. Consciousness always comes first. And consciousness came from the Creator God.
It's like saying that synchronicities wouldn't matter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything happens for a reason, I believe.
Yeah.
Because, when you look back on lives and things you've done in the past, they lead up to a certain point for a reason. And so how could you understand that if there is no belief? That makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Carl goes ahead and channels the Creator, and I would encourage everyone to go to that website, getwisdom.com. I'll put a link for the description link for the website in the description box, and it is a wealth of information. Just so everybody knows, it's almost overwhelming.
It is overwhelming.
You have to take it in a little by little. It's a lot of information, but the fact that Carl has learned, the process of how we ask, in the divine prayer, we're asking our higher self to heal ourselves. All that I did for the Lightworker Healing Protocol for Denny to do the healing on me was send him an email with the things that I would like him to work on. And it was very simple. Denny went ahead and said, yep, I'm going to do it the next day. And I didn't notice, I woke up that morning and I thought, well, everything seems the same, and of course, everyone's got doubt, but, and you had even mentioned to me, you're probably not going to notice anything right away. Give it a couple days and see what happens. And, within 3 days, it was so obvious that it hit me like a truck because I couldn't believe that I hadn't noticed it for the last 2 days before that, but I couldn't figure out why I was so confident. People at work were saying, gosh, Erin, where did that come from? You sound great. You're just so confident and you're not doubting yourself. And I used to be the person who would say, I'm sorry. I've got some trauma and in my background. So I was kind of programmed to, try to please others and, that whole enabling part. And all of a sudden on the third day after the healing, I was walking up my driveway after work and it just hit me. And what I realized was that I hadn't had those voices in my head, those negative voices that were constantly making me doubt myself. They were absolutely, completely gone for the first time in 42 years. I didn't have anything. And I don't mean audible voices. I mean voices that are, yourself that talks to yourself, you're in your own head.
Right. And some people call it the monkey mind.
Yes.
Or the chatterbox or the self-dialogue, or there's all these terms for this that goes on. And it turns out that the origin for a lot of that, not in all cases, because we're all very different from each other,
Yes.
is entity attachments.
Yes.
And
It's
they are
amazing.
very good at
Mhm.
creating things in our consciousness that really aren't ours.
Right.
They don't originate from our heart, our level, our soul,
And how I
our
knew that
mind.
is when you did the prayer, they were gone. So they weren't my thoughts. They were not absolutely none of my thoughts.
Mhm.
And it was startling to me, and it's a little frightening actually, but I mean, I'm obviously a believer. My life has done a 360 since the healing, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. I was ready to lose my house, and I have since found a new job. I've excelled at that job. Actually, I've been working really hard the last 2 months getting it up and running. We have our grand opening on Tuesday, and I've met my goal for the first month for sales. I couldn't sell anything before. So the confidence and just that, I can do this absolutely without that doubting has been just tremendous for me. So,
Yeah.
I can't say enough about it. And it's simple, it's easy, and it makes sense. There's no, that's the way
Yeah.
it should be,
You don't need to be psychic.
right?
You can, okay, so now I'm talking about learning how to do this yourself. That
Mhm.
Lightworker Healing Protocol is something that anyone who can read a book can learn how to do for themselves. It's a self-guided class, so you read the book as fast as you want. There's other parts of the education. There's webinars that we've recorded.
Mhm.
So you can watch, I don't know, it's getting close to 30 like 2-hour webinars just about the
Wow.
LHP, the Lightworker Healing
Mhm.
Protocol. The Lightworker Healing Protocol is constantly being upgraded. So since I learned it in February of 2018, it's been modified, improved, enhanced over 20 times.
Mhm.
So all it is, it's like a guided meditation. You
Right.
read the manual, you understand the material, and then at the back of the book is the actual Lightworker Healing Protocol itself, a protocol. It's a series of steps that you go through in a meditative
Mhm.
state of mind, a prayerful state of mind.
Right.
When I do the LHP, I'm like this.
Mhm.
And that's so I'm focused and I'm praying.
And you're
And
praying for that person. So
I'm praying for that person.
there's no
And
like interaction. Like
no,
I wasn't on the phone or Skype with Denny when he
right,
did this for me.
right. You
I
didn't
was at
have to
home
be
doing my
taking a
own
nap.
thing. Mhm.
Yeah, right. Didn't have to be at night or anything like that. And so my job when I do the LHP is to create a loving connection between my client and the divine realm.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. Number two is that I understand what I'm asking for.
Mhm.
Okay. And then number three is being able just to focus on what it is I'm asking. So it's the intention, right?
Right.
So a loving connection, understanding what you're asking for, and just the simple focus of being able to pay attention as you go through the steps as it goes for your clients. So I can work on one client, I can work on a group of clients, I can do location clearings, clearings for companion animals,
Pets,
and
yes.
spirit rescues for
Mhm.
people who've died and not successfully made it to the light. About a third of us don't. We get stuck. We used to call them earthbound spirits, but now we
Mhm.
call them like going into limbo, because Earth is not always the place where a disincarnate human might go. So that's the LHP in a nutshell. And then, before we wrap it up, there's one other thing I want to talk about because it's important and it's really taken off, and it's called Deep Subconscious Channeling Holographic Memory Resolution.
Mhm.
So this is something that Carl also developed, but it was developed by incorporating other healing modalities that other people had developed. In particular, the holographic memory resolution, which is developed by Brent Baum of Tucson, Arizona. And this is a talk therapy that he developed. It's very effective, and it's for healing trauma. Basically, that's what it's for. It's for healing trauma. And in the conventional way, you're using the client's emotions and body sensations to access trauma that is below the conscious level.
Mhm.
And then you help them to reimagine the trauma itself, the events. And then you use color, which is the original language of humans. When you're a
I
little
love that.
baby,
Mhm.
when you interact with the world, color is your means of understanding your environment.
Mm.
So that's the first thing that is kind of at the primal level, that your deep subconscious, which is distinct from your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we say subconscious, that means that this is the part of your mind that you're not consciously aware
Right.
of. It's subconscious. So there's actually two layers. There's the subconscious, which is accessible via conventional hypnotherapy. And then there's another layer of subconscious called the deep subconscious, which is not accessible.
Right.
Okay. People may tell you that it's accessible, but it's not.
And these
The
are
only
where
way
those reincarnated traumas would be held, correct?
Right. The deep subconscious is the biggest part of your mind, and the part of your mind that has direct access to the Akashic records. So the deep subconscious remembers all your past lives, and the only way you can access the deep subconscious is through the divine realm. The
Sure.
divine realm enables a pathway to create a communication link between someone in the here and now and that part of the client's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this healing modality is called deep subconscious channeling, holographic memory resolution. So the way it works is that Carl did this first, and what he would do is channel the client's deep subconscious.
Okay.
So he's speaking for the client's deep subconscious.
Well, they're home doing whatever they're doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then the HMR practitioner, the holographic memory resolution practitioner, which is me in this case,
Right.
I learned how to do this. I went to Tucson, learned from Brett and everything. You can learn how to do this remotely now. He has a website where you can go and learn how to do holographic memory resolution. And so the holographic memory resolution practitioner works with the client's deep subconscious via the channeler. And we go through this process of accessing the most troubling issue for the deep subconscious. So that trauma, usually from a past life, in fact, in our case, right, so far, it's been always in some past life, can be brought to the surface, explained, and then we ask them to reimagine that scene the way they want it to be. And then we associate that with a color, and then we run that color through the body. And what that does is it doesn't change history. It changes the energetic signature of the trauma itself in the Akashic record.
So every time there's a trigger, you're not triggering that terrible memory, you're triggering the new one.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah. So we can work on having the divine realm and the client's deep subconscious guide us to the trauma that's in most need of healing. And that's usually what we do. And we can also use it as an issue. So if a client says, "Oh man, my knee is always bothering me. I've gone to all the doctors and my knee just keeps bothering me." Well, we can use that in this resolution. And the way it sounds in the process is that when you think about the issue of your sore knee, where do you feel that in your body? And this is a question that we're asking the deep subconscious.
Sure.
Not the client, not the conscious mind, the deep subconscious. Well, the deep subconscious knows where that came from.
Why? Yes.
Originally.
It could have been 300,000 years ago, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Right. And there could be multiple trauma experiences that contributed to that sensation in the body. Sure. And the body's job is to alert you in the conscious world. You got a problem.
And that's what pain is. That's what pain is, you know?
Right. That's right. And if anybody wants to look into this further, look at the books by Dr. John Sarno, who studied neck, back, and lower back pain in his clients. And he found out that there was no correlation between disability and pain relative to the physical condition of the spine.
Right. So there was a person with like very degraded spine, and then they were bedridden, and then they had an identical, like pretty much, very, same pretty much scenario with a different person. And that person, the x-rays were similar. That person's out, leading a normal life and not in pain.
Right. So John Sarno came to the conclusion that the common denominator for the pain was unresolved emotional issues, which is exactly right. It's not expressed in the same terms that we do at Get Wisdom, but there's some consistency here in this point of view in terms of healing and what to do about it. So what happened was Carl trained another channeler in Australia. She's a nurse. Her name's Helen. Helen and I work together now, just like Carl works with a person up in Chicago and does this deep subconscious channeling, holographic memory resolution sessions. And so what we did is Carl had a backlog. He wasn't accepting new clients. He's only doing this kind of work 1 day a week, and so people were waiting like anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months to get a session done, one session done. So he trained a Chandler, who actually, she was already a Chandler and pretty much divinely aligned, but there was some fine tuning that needed to be done. So she worked with Carl. Carl gave us the green light and said, yeah, Helen is ready to do this. We're going to do, you can work with her and do the deep subconscious channeling, holographic memory resolution sessions. And the people who were following this were already our LHP students. Okay. These are people that had bought the course, learned how to do it, and were already actively involved in doing LHPs for, you name it.
And just so everybody knows, you
family members.
You can't have the holographic memory resolution until you've already received the LHP.
Right. So we do. So if a new client comes to us, we say, well, let's do the LHP for you first. And that's kind of like the way I look at it is like, let's clean up the living room before we invite guests over. That's the way I look at it. So we do the LHP and then we do it for the client. So what was happening was that these LHP students and practitioners were coming to Helen and I and buying a session, and we would do the session for them. And we'd send them an audio recording of the session. And that's something else I want to talk about, because there's a bit of a conflict there that needs to be explained. But so we would send them the audio recording and they would listen to Helen in a trance state, channeling their own deep subconscious and talking about the traumas that they experienced and being able to witness the reframe process. And at the end of each session, we do what we call belief work, which is derived from Vienna Stable's Theta Healing course.
Okay.
And this is belief work. So people can look into that if they want to. But what we do is we go through a process where we invite all the younger selves of the client who experienced a trauma like that to come, and we help get rid of all the negative feelings associated with that collection of traumas. And then we find out what the beliefs were for the deep subconscious as a result of having those traumas. A lot of it had to do with self-worth, being betrayed, not being able to expect anything good in life. And those feelings are replaced, and decisions are replaced with new ones that are derived from the client's deep subconscious. This isn't something that Helen and I say, it's what the deep subconscious says. And then we work with Creator to establish those new decisions in the deep subconscious. So it's life-changing. It really is life-changing. So getting back to what I was saying earlier there, is that they would order a session, we'd send them the audio tape, and then they'd turn around and order 5 more. Clearly, and this has been going on since January. So and right now, right now, Helen and I have 2 months of work, solid work, 2 months until we get caught up.
Wow.
But the thing is, we're not advertising. Helen has a website. We're not advertising. It's all word of mouth. People know that this works. So they're telling their friends, family, people.
It's having that much of an impact on people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that trauma is, it really is. I think what we're meant to do here is to help others and heal. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. The first time I realized that my mom died of cancer 6 years ago, she was only 57, and she died of stomach cancer. And I had went to a psychic about a year after she died. And my mom came through, of course, right away. And she told the psychic that the first thing she said was, "None of this is real," which I find very interesting. I didn't really get it then. I'm like, what does she mean? She said, "None of this is real." It was the first thing she said. None of this is real. She then went on to say that she had a trauma when my mom was, it was just her and I, a single mom.
Yeah.
But she was young and she was never really warm with me. I'd see her be real loving and kind to her friends, and then she was always just kind of cold to me, and we were never real close. She just was very standoffish, and I always felt like I never pleased her. And when she came through, she said that she had a trauma in her early or late teens, early adult,
right,
that she never healed from, and that she was so sorry that she took that out on me.
Okay.
And that I reminded her of that. And I don't know details, but my mom died of stomach cancer. She held in pain. And that's what she ended up dying from, because she
Yeah.
couldn't heal. She was an alcoholic. You know, she wasn't able, she never talked about it. She kept it bottled in, and she died of tumor.
Yeah.
And it's like, my God, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was life-changing to me. I knew that there was something more, but that was absolutely life-changing. She then went on to, my mom, my stepdad bought me it's called a thummy necklace, and it's a little oval shaped pendant that has my mom's thumbprint on it.
Oh, cool.
And I was not wearing it at the session. And the psychic started drawing with her finger on the table. What is this that I'm seeing? And she started drawing her finger in the shape of an oval and said she saw a sterling pendant and asked me what it was. Well, I wasn't wearing it.
Yeah.
You know, so it was life-changing. But the first thing out of her mouth was, none of this is real.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's interesting, because what we found with dealing with people who have gone on to the light and archangels and creator, is that when we ask questions about stuff, they don't lead. It's not leading. And
sure,
where a lot of people new to this would feel strange about the information that we're getting, a lot of it has to do with the divine realm respecting human free will.
Right.
And so that goes to what I think is sometimes ridiculous extremes. So if you have a firm belief in something, they're not going to go up against you and correct you and lead you in the right direction. And this applies to atheists as well. If you decide that yourself that there is no God, God's not going to come into your life and say, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm here." Right. That's the level of respect that the divine realm has for human free will. Mm-hmm. Humans were created to solve the problem of evil, and they have to do that pretty much on their own volition. And once they decide that it's time for me to be active, and I could be a player, and I can heal, and I can change the world, then the next logical thing to do is to do it in a partnership with the divine realm. And that's where they're ready, willing, and able. So if you ask, they will step in, and they will do the right thing, and they can do powerful things for you. But the difficulty for us humans is that we have so much unhealed trauma. That getting back into that divine alignment
to get that connection,
very difficult process. Mm-hmm. And there's two other things I want to talk about. When the Anunnaki came back and found humans had been reseeded back onto Earth by the divine realm, they were very perplexed. They thought they had eliminated all the humans. They didn't understand how the humans got back on Earth. But from their experience being like the main predator species in the Milky Way galaxy, they knew what to do with humans. And the first thing they did is they genetically modified humans to disconnect them permanently from their higher self, and disconnect them genetically, permanently from their deep subconscious. Because that's the only way that the Anunnaki found that they could actually control humans in order to make them useful to them as slaves. So we did find out that a lot of what Sitchin wrote about in terms of the Anunnaki interaction with early humans was accurate in terms of the interbreeding and the giants and the slave races and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that Sitchin stuff is actually accurate. I'm not a big Sitchin fan, but it's either true or isn't. So, and then the other thing I want to talk about is when we do the LHP is designed for psychic people and people who aren't psychic. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be psychic to do the LHP, but a lot of people who do the LHP are psychic. Okay. So throughout the steps of this process of asking the divine realm to heal your client, for people who are psychic, there is a witnessing process that can go on. So when you want entities to be removed from your client, you can actually see, a psychic person can actually develop the skill to see these entities, what they are, who they are. They come in different forms. It's explained in the manual, where they're attached in the energy field, and see them being removed and gone and taken to the light to be healed. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this whole process with the LHP is to raise everything up. It's not to excise and
Yes.
eliminate and destroy and punish or bottle up anything. It's all about healing, 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 healing.
360 healing.
It
Yes.
doesn't matter who you are, what you are. If you're the perpetrator, you're the victim. It doesn't matter. It's all about healing. Okay, so when a psychic person does this, they learn a lot of things about the client. And the client, we've been kind of trained as if we go to a psychic or an energy healer, we want a psychic reading. Well, what was that entity? What was that trauma? Who was that dark cloud attached to my spine or whatever?
Yes.
And what Carl found out through working through his clients is that relating that information back to his clients, it solved the mind candy desire.
Yes.
The ego part of ourselves wanting to know all the dirty details. Almost none of that was useful in the healing process. In fact, in most cases, it would feed the problem so that the person would reattach to it.
Yes.
And reproduce old karmic cycles that weren't really had anything to do with the actual healing.
I don't think our minds are able to. If I was told something crazy, like if I, oh, you were let's say, I mean, we all have dark pasts. Let's just, be blunt. We've all been things that we can't imagine ourselves being. And the knowledge of that is not going to help us in any way. In fact, it can create new trauma, correct?
That's correct. And even people who seem very spiritually mature or emotionally mature, who will assure everyone that, well, me knowing this information is not going to negatively impact my healing. Even those people are liable in those situations. So in the early days when I first met Carl, he would share some of that information with his clients. And in some cases, it didn't cause any harm. It was okay. It didn't create any more problems. But in a lot of cases, it did. And in some cases, it really created problems. That could have been totally prevented by Carl not, or the LHP practitioner not relating those details back to the client. So we just don't do it. Now, I just talked about the deep subconscious channeling holographic memory resolution. If you order a session, we send you the audio tape and you get a blow-by-blow account of the trauma. So this is kind of like exact opposite of what we're saying about the LHP. And I want to explain why it's done this way. So if you just came to me and said, oh, I want a deep subconscious channeling holographic memory resolution session, and then we say, okay, we do it. Well, I go hook up with the channeler, he channels your deep subconscious, and and then I go back and say, okay, Aaron, we did it for you. Have a nice day. And you're going, gee, I just paid this money for this thing and I've got nothing tangible, for this exchange. And so Carl ran into this problem early on when he started doing it. And so his rationalization for this, his reasoning for this, which I support, but I do understand there's some pitfalls, is that you need to give the client something that they can, so they know that something has been done. And so we give the audio file. So we record the session, we give them the audio file, knowing that there is some risk. There is some risk there. But the thing that mitigates that risk is that we actually have changed the energetic signature of the trauma, and we've done the belief work. So it's kind of like a safety thing, because whatever we dealt with there, we dealt with it. The divine realm dealt with it. The deep
that trigger has been changed to a positive.
Been changed, right?
Yes. So really, that's not going to have the effect that it did before.
Right. So with the LHP, it's more of an iterative process. So when we do the LHP, it's not just, okay, we do this little healing thing with the divine realm for the client, and then we walk away and go eat lettuce or something. It's a repeating process. It's not time bound. It goes back into time. It works at the present moment, and it goes into the future, plus past, present, and future life extensions, which is another phenomena of reality that's poorly understood but explained in the manual. So when you talk, people say, well, that's on a different timeline. Well, that's their way of having a partial understanding of what we're talking about when we talk about past, present, and future life extensions. Okay, so that's the rationale for that. Is why in one case we're telling all, and in another case we don't. Because with the LHP, this is a repeating process. The healing is on. When you get your first LHP, you're starting a healing process that's ongoing.
Yes.
It not only goes back into time, but it's ongoing. So some trauma or something that a practitioner may see and relates back to you may not be fully healed in terms of that information being beneficial to you. So I don't know if I explained that right, but that's part of the reasoning why we do it one way in one case and a different way in another case.
It makes total sense to me.
Okay.
And I also want to say too that maybe some of the things in the LHP originally, maybe you haven't gotten to that point in your life where, you know, maybe next week you're going to meet somebody, you know, and then, you know, part of that, that healing, you know, that maybe you had done is going to affect, you know, but it won't help, or it won't take effect until you meet that certain person or that certain event, you know?
Right.
So, you know, I just wanted to add that.
And that's one of the things that we've discovered too, is that, you know, we need to understand as much as we can about what to ask for when it comes to healing, but we're not going to understand all the mechanics that the divine realm undertakes to actually accomplish the healing for the client, and what their decision process is for what to work on first.
We can't
know all these kind of, it's so complicated.
Yes.
For the light beings, it's not a big deal, but for us, it's like trying to hold the whole house on the tip of your finger. It just can't be done. You know, we just don't have the capacity for it. So, but anyway, I mean, the thing about Get Wisdom is that, you know, for a newcomer and someone who's actually even already been kind of steeped in a lot of this stuff, it's a lot of bad news all at once.
It is.
It's not about depopulation. It's about annihilation. It's not about, you know, it's about free will, but free will comes at a very high cost. And
sorry.
Yeah, the chances of this not turning out successful are quite high. But I was just going to say, you know, one of the reasons I've been involved in this is because we really have found a solution that works. And the rub, the thing that we're up against now, is just getting enough people doing the healing work so that we can actually turn the situation around. Right. We're to be fair, we're a long ways away from that right now, but we've made great headway. But we need a lot more people doing this work. A lot more people. There's, you know, people will tell you that there's 7 billion people on the planet right now. I think it's less than that myself. But irrespective, we just got a little tiny number of humans doing very powerful healing work.
Yes.
On behalf of all the other humans. And this is about the whole human family.
Yes.
It's not about the Illuminati and the rest of us. It's not about the humans and the ETs. It is to some extent, but
we all can't move on until all of us are healed.
Exactly. And the ETs need to be healed enough so that they change their mind about the annihilation. And that's the problem.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and until, you know, until evil gets a piece of goodness, how will they ever change? That's the way I look at it.
Right.
What is ever going to make that person change or that entity change until they've seen kindness or seen love? Because that's what it's all about, you know. And
that's very well put.
Yeah.
That's the good way to put it right there.
And so my question to you, Denny, is I think we've all seen a recent increase of the news or media, fake news, whatever you want to call it, promoting UFOs and this whole, you know,
disclosure.
Yep. And then of course there's the von Braun, you know, with the fake alien invasion. And that there's a, you know, a plan to bring this on for a very probably dark reason. Now, I'm assuming that probably is the case. What would you suggest the best thing that we can do if that situation comes?
Well, one of the things that we pray for is for this to be forestalled until people are more healed. Because right now, if there is a real disclosure event, the likelihood that humans will be misled by this is really high.
I agree. It scares me very
really
much.
High. So. And it doesn't matter whether it's a fake alien invasion
or real,
or it's real and fake or all real. It doesn't really matter.
Who knows what to believe?
Yeah, because what my understanding of what they're doing right now is that they're running a lot of different disclosure scenarios up the flagpole to see which one's going to fly.
Planting here and there.
Yeah.
To see how people
So
react.
it's kind of like a multi-level chess game. So with every new release of information, at the human level and at the ET level, they're looking at what this information is doing to our consciousness. And they're studying that. And they're trying to understand where they can get their most bang for the buck by doing a disclosure that will put humans in a position where they're more easily annihilated. That's the goal of disclosure. Disclosure is a psyop. And a disclosure in any of its forms right now is a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
So I think one of the more likely scenarios is that they're going to present the disclosure thing as a good ET versus bad ET scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So lucky for you humans, your governments have sided with the good ETs, and we're going to try to keep you safe from these bad ETs.
Yeah.
And that kind of narrative can work under a whole different variety of scenarios. So, and when I say this is that, you could be a devout follower of Greer, of David Icke, of the Allies for Humanity, for the event people, Prepare for Change, or any of the other, big presences out there trying to make an explanation for this. And you could be serving this dark ET agenda.
And not know.
Because all of those are set up so that the best lie is 90% true. So there's a 10% in there where they can do the manipulation, present it as a more palatable, understandable event for the majority of humans. And what it turns out to be is a disempowering event.
Yes.
So we're giving over our sovereignty, not only to our governments, but then to whatever's controlling the governments.
Yes.
And we're suckers. Humans by nature and by programming are suckers for the us versus them. Good guy, bad guy. Yeah. So Democrat, Republican, progressive, conservative, all of those kinds of divisions are very appealing to humans. And those are the kinds of things that they're going to use on humans in this disclosure scenario, because it always works. Mm-hmm. It always works. You can always get people to divide.
Yeah.
So the Get Wisdom thing is about, reestablishing the idea that this is a human family.
Yes.
Earth is ours, and we have a responsibility. And this is now a divine level problem. This is so complicated, and we are so outgunned in terms of our own survival that we need the assistance of the divine realm. But the assistance is only going to come in the form of a partnership where humans are making intelligent requests, because the divine realm is not going to do this for us. This is not a savior scenario. This is not a return of Jesus scenario. It's not. We have to take a very active role in understanding the problem and applying the solution.
Right.
So this is kind of a hard pill to swallow if you've just been doing the normal UFO ET ascension thing. It's like,
is it possible though? Is it possible?
Yeah, we're being told it's still possible. Okay. And to be honest, I think a lot of us who've been following Get Wisdom or involved with Get Wisdom for a long time still kind of think that's incredible given what we see every day. Because people are so willfully ignorant.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Go out into the world and see if you can have this kind of conversation with the people in your life, and they think you're nuts.
Look, they can't even get over the whole Trump thing,
Yeah.
And it's in my opinion, it is the only option, because until you're free from those manipulations and that, I don't know how it's possible. It would be possible.
Yeah. So I'm involved because there is a solution. I've had firsthand direct experience working with the solution to see that it does work on the personal level. Mm-hmm. For friends, family, mm-hmm. All the people I've done sessions for. I keep a little log of all the sessions I do. I write it in this little book. I have, reams and reams. This is my third book. I've done over 800 sessions.
Wow. So
And
many people you've helped.
yeah, some of our practitioners average 3 sessions a day.
Wow. And
Um,
just so everybody knows, I on the 1st of July, actually, I'm gonna start taking the practitioner course. So I hopefully within about a month's time or so,
yeah,
have my practitioner, so I will be able to do those healings as well.
yeah, yeah. It's wonderful. I mean, and it's not, you're not constrained. You don't need to hang a shingle. If you want to do it for your friends or family for free, that's
Mhm.
fine. If you want to refer them to Get Wisdom, we charge $250 to do a personal clearing. We have discounts for groups. We have a system for financial hardship. So if somebody's strapped for funds or whatever, that's not a barrier to getting the healing work done.
Mhm.
Our practitioners do LHPs for each other all the time. We have a forum on the website. So if you're in trouble or whatever, you can get on there and you can get like 10, 15 people doing LHPs for you or a family member, just like
Amazing.
that.
Amazing.
And
And
then,
yeah,
yeah,
it really is amazing. And I know I was led by the divine realm to this information and to Denny and Carl, and the synchronicities are just amazing. And
yeah,
my life has literally turned around, and I get a little teary, but I'm just so filled with gratitude, because it has changed everything, and it's changed my perception on how I look at everything, and
yeah,
just immense gratitude. So I would like to again thank you with all my heart,
yeah.
and I hope everyone has enjoyed this. If you have questions, put them in the comments. I can hopefully answer some of those. And if not, I can, reach out to Denny.
Yeah.
I'll be putting the links for Denny's YouTube channel and for Get Wisdom in the description box. And thank
Yeah.
you again.
Go check out the free ebooks. You just sign up as a participant member, put your email address on there. You can download all the books. They don't cost anything. And then there's the database there. There's a participant forum. So just without any money, you can get on there and you can
Absolutely.
exchange with other people who've looked into the Get Wisdom stuff. If you get a bunch of questions as a result of this video, and you want to do a follow-up interview, we can do that too. So you can have a list of questions and we'll go through it. I'll do my best. And, if I don't know the answer, I'll ask Carl, or we get questions all the time, and Carl will take the questions and go do a channeling and post it,
So yeah,
like, in
I
fact,
encourage everyone to put a question if they have it.
Here's one. If we have time, here's one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to read it to give you an example. And this is kind of a juicy one that we kind of avoid these kind of questions a lot because we're not really in the business of vetting other channelers.
Sure.
But this one's kind of interesting. So I'll just read it. Just bear with me here.
Yeah.
So this question came in from one of our viewers, and this was addressed during one of the webinars when I was on my vacation here recently. And this is the question: are the Pleiadians channeled by Barbara Messiniak being reptilians living in future extensions of our current world, facing an uncertain future if humanity fails to solve the problem of evil? And here's the answer that Carl got from Creator when he asked that question. It is truly the case that the Pleiadians being channeled by Barbara Messiniak are living in the future extension of the reptilian realm as linear descendants, and as such are influenced by everything happening in your world because the reptilians interact with you. They are involved in many worlds throughout the Milky Way galaxy, but yours is the most critical to their future because you are here to heal their culture and thereby make the future extension coalesce in response to the healing underway that can forestall the alien annihilation of humanity. That potential is what allows them to continue existing in the future extension. It is a higher vibrational state, not because the beings there are more lofty and therefore more trustworthy and a source of potential rescue and so on. They are higher vibrational because it is simply a higher vibrational dimension, being a future extension of the physical planes and its doings. So this gives rise to many false interpretations by those who are channeling the so-called benevolent extraterrestrials. The few sources of genuine beings are a mix of things. Some are future timeline representatives of beings within the galaxy. Others are outside the galaxy and may well be more lofty because they are uncorrupted. Most channelers of such beings, as you know, are not truly doing so, but are being deceived largely by Anunnaki psychics, pretending to be other star beings and lineages, professing to be here to help. but are really duping the channeler and their followers. The consequences of all this is that the very future existence of those Pleiadian sources will depend greatly on what happens in the next few years with respect to the planned annihilation. Their future will end and their world collapse if you go down. By failing to do enough healing of the interlopers to save yourselves, if you go down by failing to do enough healing of the interlopers to save yourselves, if they can be healed enough to persuade them to withdraw, then humanity can continue to heal sufficiently to allow an ascension. And then the work will continue, but from a higher plane of existence. That is what the current Pleiadians being channeled are a part of in the future. But all future timelines, as future extensions, are indeterminate, highly labile, L-A-B-I-L-E, labile, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word, but I know what it means, and can be undone if something drastic happens in the current timeline that effectively cancels the possibility of their existence. This indeed is why the channeling is allowed and taking place, to give them a voice in things and to act as a warning for humanity. They are still constrained from giving you direct instructions because they are not human, and the burden is on humanity. So hints can be made, but only within the divine constraints. They are not allowed to interfere greatly, solely to serve their own best interests, but will definitely benefit from the success of the divine human free will project. So that's an example of the kind of questions and answers that we get on the Get Wisdom website. So if that interests your viewers, go over there because there's tons more of information like that about every imaginable subject.
It's amazing. It's a lot, you know.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, what was that again? I mean, that's incredibly deep. But if I understood that right, was that, you know, what's the, you know, the nuts and bolts of it is, again, we have to heal these negative and interlopers because nothing can be changed on any timeline until that's done. Correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's incredibly, So it's, chew on that for a while, you know? Wow. So yes, it really is, I don't think there's anyone could get through everything in maybe even a lifetime, all the information that's available. So, but I would encourage everyone to go over there. If you have any questions, like Denny said, he'd be more than happy to answer if he can. If not, we'll find the answer or have Carl channel the answer. So again, thank you. And thank you to all my viewers who've been patient with me as I get this new business going and technical difficulties. and again, thank you to Denny for his generous time. So,
okay. All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Take care.